Hi everyone, welcome to Tile and Cork. We are Amy and Josh, and we moved from Austin, Texas to Lisbon, Portugal last year with our two kids. And we are here sharing our experiences moving abroad with you.
Today we're doing a video that was requested. People want to know what we brought,
And how we packed it.
how we packed it, how we moved our stuff when we moved from the United States to Portugal. So we're going to address that today. Let's unpack it.
All right, so first of all, the big decision that we made was we made a decision that we were not going to ship anything to Portugal. So some people decide that they want to ship a crate of things or whatever, and we said, nope, we are just going to bring what we can with us on the plane. So that was kind of the big decision that really played a factor in all of our packing.
I don't think, we didn't want to recreate our old life in Portugal. We wanted to adopt some of the culture and feel like locals. So we wanted to get rid of most of our stuff. And we had a pretty good idea we were going to move, about 2 years before we did. So we stopped buying cars and we stopped buying...
You make it sound like we just bought a bunch of cars.
Well, we had the rolls and... but we had old cars, and we would have had to buy new ones.
Yeah, because our cars were over 20 years old.
And
your car was over 20 years old, mine. But yeah,
Pinto station wagon. But we stopped buying furniture, rugs, appliances, unless it was absolutely necessary. We just let things run their course.
And also, we didn't know what kind of apartment we would be living at here in Portugal, so we didn't even know what would fit into an apartment or the space or anything. And so we did not worry about keeping furniture.
Yeah. So we decided to get rid of basically everything and move with only what we could take with us on the plane.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people can get hung up in their stuff, and we decided, it was a big question, like, are we more tied to our stuff, or do we want the experience of moving abroad? Do we really want to make this move abroad happen?
Do I need my entire CD collection when I don't even have a CD player? It was hard to get rid of some stuff, but wasn't practical at all. And until this moment, I have not thought about that.
Exactly. I mean, the light at the end of the tunnel, it's just like, what's your goal? Is your goal to move to this other country, or is your goal to keep your stuff?
I mean, you think about when you travel and go on vacation, the vacation and the experience is the best part of it. And the experience over stuff is what we were going for.
Okay, so let's talk about what we actually brought, because I'm sure you have questions about like what we prioritized and what we decided we wanted to bring. So I think the most important item was clothes, because those are, kind of a non-negotiable when you want to be in public. So we had to figure out what we were going to bring. And I think, again, we have kids. So for the kids, it was really deciding about what they would fit into in the future. What they fit into now in that season.
They're in their younger side, so they generally grew out of clothes every 6 to 8 months or so. So we really planned in seasons. We moved in summer, so of course we brought lots of short sleeve shirts and dresses and shorts. And then when it came to a couple long sleeve shirts and a pair of pants and all of our warm pajamas for them, I think we gave away.
So we just packed enough to get them kind of started here and fit into the season that we were in.
Mm-hmm. And then the same goes for us, and similar. We brought warm weather clothes. Only a couple pairs. I brought 2 pairs of shorts and socks and and some shirts and maybe 1 or 2 nice shirts that I wanted to bring. But some warm clothes. I think I brought 2 pairs of pants and a couple long sleeve shirts, but new, like enough to give me time to go shopping if we needed to. And you think you might have lots of time when you move here, but of course your days get filled pretty quickly with finding an apartment and doing school stuff and everything else. So you don't have as much time as you think you do, as well as when you have kids, you can't really drag them everywhere, like going shopping when they're tired.
Yeah, same. I mean, I packed, I really downsized a lot. And I spent most of the summer kind of doing several passes through my clothes to decide what I actually wanted to bring versus not bring. And it was great to just get rid of all these clothes that I wasn't even wearing in my closet and really kind of decide, what do I see myself actually wearing in Portugal? What do I want to bring?
Yeah.
And I wound up bringing, I think, in terms of jackets, I wound up bringing like my kind of like puffy jacket that keeps me warm that I was so glad to have this winter and I wore a ton. And then a more lightweight jacket that I also wore a ton. So like those were just like two great options for me that served me well this winter. And I didn't even buy a new jacket this winter.
And again, we wanted to fit in with what people were wearing here.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is just to buy new clothes, which we needed anyway.
Okay, so we knew we wanted our kids to be able to bring some stuff that they were comfortable with and that they really wanted to bring and involve them in this process. So we wound up giving them each a box that they could fill with whatever they wanted to bring to Portugal. And so both of them kind of went through, were excited, and packed stuff into their box. Now, did we bring everything in that box?
First of all, if there are kids watching this, turn this off now. You're not allowed to watch this.
They wound up just putting random stuff in this box too. So, but it was a good indicator of what was important to them and what they wanted to bring. So I went through each of their boxes and kind of said, okay, this is clearly, some of the stuff that they want to bring, but we didn't bring all of that. And then they left some things out of their boxes, like some of their favorite stuffed animals that I was like, oh, they're going to miss that. So we wound up kind of using that as a guide for what we brought to Portugal. And again, if they were older, we would probably have more discussions with them about, what was important to bring, but because of the age of them, we just kind of use that as a guide. Mm-hmm. So that was it for their toys. And then we also brought some books with us. Now, most of the books we brought were books for our kids. Mm-hmm. So English language books, like storybooks that we would read at nighttime. So we brought some of those with us, not too many. And then I also brought probably like 2 or 3 books that are just I use for my business.
And honestly, we wish we had brought a few more kids' books.
Yeah.
Because finding English language kids' books is difficult, especially when you think of how long you might be using them. They might have their favorites that they read over and over. I might have my favorites that I read to them over and over. And one day we'll move to Portuguese language books, I think. Mm-hmm. But
we have a few, but we just haven't. We're not reading them to the kids yet.
Yeah.
But. Okay, another big thing you're probably going to bring with you that we did were electronics. Mm-hmm. So
cell phones,
computers. Our kids have iPads. I do a lot of photography, so I had cameras and camera equipment. I really wanted to bring my iMac, my desktop computer. I love that thing, and it's what I did most of my work on. But I moved to a laptop shortly before we made the move abroad because bringing the computer would have just been a bunch of hassle. It didn't fit into what we were bringing for storage, so I had to say goodbye to it and send it off to Apple and have a laptop instead. And I will say, I have not missed my iMac, and you just kind of adapt to the situation. And so
it has probably missed you, though.
It probably misses me. I spent a lot of time.
We know Apple products have feelings.
Yes. So we kind of brought the electronics that we needed.
The important thing, too, to keep in mind is that some of the things that do get flagged for customs coming through are electronics. And there is a rule about the electronics being older than 6 months when you bring them in if you're intending to live here. Because for reasons...
I guess they don't want people to bring them in and resell or, things like that without paying VAT or whatever.
We'll talk a little bit later about going through customs, but that's just something to keep in mind about the age of your electronics.
Yeah. Another thing that was really important that we brought was paperwork. So, when you're going through this whole visa process, you have a lot of paperwork that you've had. You might have birth certificates, medical records,
marriage certificates,
just things like that you might need in Portugal. So you do want to make sure that you're bringing any important paperwork that you think you might be using over here, because it's hard to get it from the U.S. when you're already living in Portugal. So definitely keep that in mind. So that's something we made sure we brought and knew where it was at all times.
And you'll probably need it.
Yeah. Okay, also, one big thing that you're going to need is maybe your medications.
Mm-hmm.
So we came over with any prescription medications we needed.
And also, I think we asked for from our doctors for a prescription that was much longer than the standard, or an extra refill, so we can take care of those right away and have those for when we get here. We didn't take advantage of it, but I understand if for a lot of medications, if you just show your prescription bottle or prescription at the pharmacy, they can fill it for you for most prescriptions.
Yeah, and actually one thing that reminds me, one thing I brought was I got almost a year's worth of contacts.
Contact lenses.
Contact lenses from my eye doctor. So that way, because I didn't know when I would have an eye appointment here. I still haven't had one. I need to schedule one. But that way I knew it would get me through a lot of this first year here, just so I didn't have to worry about, running out of contacts. So
yeah, bring extra.
Yeah. And then we also brought just some bath products with us. Like I brought the makeup products I knew I really liked and enjoyed. And so obviously you can find bath products, makeup, anything like that here. There are Sephora's here, like plenty of shops for that. But again, we just didn't know, what we were going to need when we first got here. So we brought kind of the essentials with us to start.
I'm still using deodorant from a year ago.
Really?
I haven't run out of deodorant.
Wow. And you're not even smelly. So good for you. Okay. So... and then we also brought some kitchen products with us. That may seem silly, but there's things that you might really enjoy. Like we
should talk about, like, we didn't bring appliances intentionally, and some of them we rebought here because of the power conversions. We've heard some nightmare stories. Even if you get an adapter for them or power converter, they can have problems with overheating.
You don't want to bring like your blenders, air fryers, anything like that.
KitchenAid mixers.
Yeah, you rebuy it over here
so
if you need it.
We did that too. Yeah, but we did bring some other kitchen stuff, especially if you have some favorite recipes that use cups and or I guess royal units instead of metric. Yeah. So that's helpful.
And you can find cups, like tablespoon, teaspoon measuring stuff here. But again, we just didn't know.
At least in Lisbon. I mean, we live in a big...
So we brought them just because we didn't know. And I create recipes for a living and mostly for a US-based audience. So I needed to make sure that I could, measure stuff in cups, tablespoons, teaspoons, all that stuff. So that was something important that we brought. We also brought some knives that we really liked from back home.
Wrap them properly and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Don't take them on your carry-on, though.
No. And then we also brought our favorite blanket.
Yeah, and I maybe packing pillows sounds ridiculous, but I can't say that I've found a perfect pillow to replace the one I had before.
I would have brought my pillow. And again, you think that pillows take up a lot of space, but we're going to talk about that.
Or that they're easy to find, but like picking out a mattress, it's hard. You go through a lot of them before you figure out what's perfect.
And you can vacuum seal those babies down to almost nothing. So we'll talk about that and when we talk about
in a second.
We packed everything. Okay, so let's talk about what we actually brought. So first of all,
for luggage, right? We're talking about luggage.
Yes, for luggage, like
how did we pack everything and bring it?
The biggest help, I think, when we packed everything was we vacuum sealed stuff. So we vacuum sealed pretty much all of our clothes. We vacuum sealed
jackets that we thought we need. The stuffed animals for the kids, very important.
Yeah, the kids, we definitely brought some of their stuffed animals. We brought, my son really loves one of his large squishmallows, and so it felt sad to leave it behind, so we vacuum sealed that, and it vacuum sealed so great. And we also vacuum sealed the blanket that we brought. If we had brought pillows, we would have vacuum sealed them, and it would have been great. But, so we vacuum sealed all that stuff, and it just shrunk down so much. It helped us be able to carry so much more.
Right, and we still put these packages into either a suitcase or bins or something else.
Yeah.
And the weight is still there. You don't realize how heavy it is until you shrink wrap it and the volume is gone. And some of the stuff is still fairly heavy.
Yeah. So for any of the luggage you're bringing, you still need to make sure you are weighing it and everything. So.
And also, if you're accustomed to packing for a vacation and you put some of your more fragile items in between your soft clothes, that that kind of goes away when you vacuum seal.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden things have hard edges and way more, and their fluffiness is gone.
That actually reminds me, and we actually didn't vacuum seal the blanket because I used it as kind of cushion around some of the electronics that we packed.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. So vacuum sealing was helpful, but now let's talk about the luggage that we actually brought. So suitcases.
2 suitcases, one large size, another large size?
Carry on.
Carry on.
So we had one that was like regular size, like not too giant either, just like a regular size suitcase, and then one that's carry on size.
Right.
So those were the 2 suitcases we already owned. So we said, let's not buy anything new, let's bring those.
And we did consider getting more suitcases when it came to moving. And we realized that suitcases don't store great. You know, when we're going to have them around the house, we don't need 4 suitcases. So
unless they're the type that can like nest inside each other, which we really didn't need to buy.
So we did consider and ended up using storage bins and soft bags.
Yeah.
Why did we decide to get both?
So a lot of people said the soft bags were great for clothes, you know, really easy to carry, not super bulky. So we did 3 soft bags, and
just to make sure that they didn't rip or have any problems with the zippers, we actually used one bag inside of another bag, and carried them that way. So if one did tear, because they're not great quality, but they work just fine.
Yeah.
So if one did tear or a zipper broke, we wouldn't be at risk of losing everything that was in there.
And
we didn't have any problems with them.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So we did 3 of the soft bags, and we packed, I think it was just clothes that we packed in those. I don't think we packed anything else. And then we also had 3 storage crates.
Yes, 3 storage bins that you can get at a hardware store. There are some restrictions when it comes to the size that you're using. It depends on the airline. They're generally the same. The restrictions are based on linear length. So what you do is you measure the 3 different sides, the width, the length, the depth, and add those together, and you get a linear size that they have on the website. Honestly, the bins that we had were an inch or 2 over that limit.
So we weren't sure if we were going to have to pay
The bins were one of the many uncertainties that we had about the trip, about if this would be okay or not. And at least for us, they had no problems using these bins. We did, they're again regular storage bins, but we also bought a strap that we strapped around the lid and the container so that the lids wouldn't move. We were even fortunate enough that when we checked them in, that the people working the desk tightened the bins for us, or tightened the straps for us. Made sure that the straps were in a place that they wouldn't cause any problems. And then put our stickers on the bins themselves too. So, and then we had to take those through the large check-in.
At the airport, at the Austin airport.
The large X-ray scanner, and that was it.
Yeah.
And honestly, the bins were really great when it came to picking them up and putting them on a cart, because they stack really nicely. You can get some with wheels. Of course, that adds weight and takes away some of your volume that you have. And then also some people feel bad for some of the baggage handlers that maybe these are kind of ornery to negotiate when they're packing an airplane. I don't know if that's true or not, but they certainly were helpful. Also, the last thing is the bins stack inside of each other very nicely.
Oh yes, they store very well.
So, and also you can use them for other things, regular storage. Not something you can do with suitcases.
And our kids even love playing in them. We pull them out of the closet sometimes, and our son calls it his cozy spot when they put blankets in there and make them into like nice little like hangout spaces.
They're like the kittens that go into the little fishbowl and weasel around in there.
Yeah, but we in that, you know, in these storage bins, we packed, you know, some of the stuff that we just wanted to be a little bit more protected with, you know,
again, electronics.
Yeah, electronics, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, and then we also packed just one red carry-on duffel, and then Josh and I each brought a backpack. So We had in total 7 checked bags and carry-ons.
This is for 4 people.
Yes.
So
so we had,
and so
allowances.
How much did we end up paying?
We paid $300 in extra luggage fees. And that's all the luggage fees we paid because the other ones were just covered in the cost of our ticket. So because we were 4 people, that allowed us to have 4 checked bags. And then we had 3 extras that were checked. So $300, $100 each.
And something else to consider, especially if you're only 2 people moving, is upgrading your flight. Upgrading your seats to, say, business class.
Yeah, and premium economy may have more, but yeah.
But what that does allow is for you they usually have an extra bag allowance for checking in, so you may be paying more for a ticket, but you have obviously a more comfortable flight.
Yeah.
And also you're paying less in your checked baggage fees.
Yeah, and another tip is you might even have a credit card with an airline credit card or something that might allow you to have more checked bags. So definitely something to look into as well.
So one of the things you might have read about in your research are baggage customs certificates. You can actually pay a fee to get a certificate saying that you're moving to Portugal, and that you're just going to be not selling your stuff. We don't know very much about this.
We don't, because we didn't get one.
So we saw various. They can be up to like $750 or something like that, or $150.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe we should put a list on the side of what it actually costs.
Because we briefly looked into it and then realized we weren't going to have time to get it and the hassle and everything, so we didn't worry about it.
So this is you prepay for the certificate. So when you go through customs, if they want to check your stuff and you have electronics or other things that you're bringing over that, say again, a laptop that's under 6 months old, you may have to pay a fine for bringing that over. We didn't have time to do it. We also went through customs, and no one asked us anything. We just walked right through.
Yeah.
Other people have been pulled aside and had and asked to open up a bin, even if they didn't have a certificate, and then just told to move on.
And then some people get fined.
Other people get fined. Other people have been glad that they get a certificate. So
yeah, I think it's like a peace of mind thing, obviously, and it's something that you might want to look into depending on what you're bringing. But for us,
and from what we hear, it's mostly regarding electronics
are the big thing.
Under 6 months old.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the end, we're glad that we took everything that we did on the plane and didn't do a massive move with a crate or anything like that.
Yeah.
I will say that, I think that getting rid of everything is almost as hard as moving everything. Obviously, you still have to coordinate, if not movers, garage sales or donating stuff, or some groups, charitable groups coming over and picking up stuff, or hiring people to take it to the dump. Or whatever. Also, I certainly have PTSD from the experience, and getting rid of things that were perfectly usable. It's maybe a flaw in my personality, but it's not that I hate to throw anything away, but if it still has use, I hate to get rid of it and buy a new thing. Yeah. However, it also feels good to come here and start over. Oh. Yeah.
No regrets.
Yeah. So. These are things to keep in mind when you pack. If you have specific questions about anything we talked about, or additional questions that we didn't cover, we'll be happy to answer them.
Pop them in the comments.
If you put them in the comments.
But thanks for joining us. Like this video if it was helpful for you. Subscribe to our channel if you don't want to miss any of our future videos. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for your time. See you soon.
Bye.
Até já.